Hi everyone, welcome to Zibakeriz, where I show you how to create beautiful decorated cakes, cupcakes, and so much more. So let's get started. Over here I have some cupcakes, and you can see they kind of have this dome on top, and I'm going to be cutting that off a little later on. And I'm also going to link the cupcake liners I use in this video in the description box down below, since I get a lot of requests on where I get them from. Over here I have some American buttercream, and you can see that it has a little bit of this yellow hue, so I'm going to be offsetting that with some white gel based food coloring by Chef Master. You can also use some white gel based food coloring by Wilton as well. I've used both of them and they work really well. So you just want to add a generous amount inside of your buttercream, and then you just want to give everything a nice mix with your spatula. So this process, you're not only adding and mixing in the white gel food coloring, but using this process of moving back and forth allows you to get rid of all of those large air bubbles. When we whip up our buttercream, it usually creates a lot of air bubbles in it, and this form of moving back and forth with your spatula will get rid of them, giving you a nice silky smooth buttercream to work with. So now I'm just going to go ahead and take off the domes of my cupcakes. So you just want to make sure that you're holding your knife nice and straight against the cupcake liner, and then we're just going to create this back and forth motion. So you just want to hold it nice and straight against the side of your cupcake liner, and then you just want to kind of rock your knife back and forth nice and straight, kind of using the edge of your cupcake liner as a guide to give you a nice straight cut. Now we're just going to repeat that same motion on all of our other cupcakes. It's pretty much super simple and easy. You're just going to follow that same method that I just showed you. You want to use the side of your cupcake liner, hold that nice and straight against the side, and then you just want to rock your knife back and forth until you have a nice straight cut. So once you've done that with all of your cupcakes, you have these nice flat tops to work with. So you can also use these extra domes to kind of create like little chocolate balls. Just crumble them up, add a little bit of buttercream, and then you can use that to create like cake pops. So the piping tips that I'm going to use on top of this is a Wilton 1M, which is an open round tip, and you're also going to need this large open cup. We're going to use that for our piping bag. So you just want to make sure that you take your Wilton 1A round tip, you want to place that inside, and then using your knife you just want to score the top. So your knife kind of makes that little scoring mark. You just want to push your piping tip back, and then you want to cut off your piping tip from the top, pushing your piping tip forward. Then I like to kind of twist the piping bag and push that inside of my piping tip, and then you're just going to fold your piping bag over the large round opening of your cup. This is just going to make it a lot easier when we're adding in our buttercream inside of our piping bag. So now just carefully place your buttercream inside of your piping bag. I'm not going to add in all of it because I'm just going to be using the rest of the buttercream to color pink a little bit later, so I'll show you that a little later in the video. Then you just want to pull out your piping bag, give it a nice twist from the top, and then kind of add pressure and push. That's just going to allow your buttercream to move forward. Now we're ready to pipe on top of our cupcakes. So I've added a little parchment square on top of each of these little plates, and I'm just going to use that. This is additional, it's not necessary, but you do need parchment paper, which we're going to be using our cupcake and flipping that on top of. So that's just what's going to give us a nice flat top. I have done this in my previous video, so I will link that video in the top right hand corner, just if you guys want to reference that video as well. That way you can do it all together. I just did each one individually for you guys just to see. So you just want to add a nice generous amount of pressure in the center, and once you have a nice dome, you just want to carefully take your cupcake, flip that over on top of this parchment square that I've cut up, and then you just want to add a little bit of pressure on the back. This is what's going to give us a nice flat top to work with. So I'm just going to repeat that same pressure motion on all of my other cupcakes. So just creating a nice dome. Once you have a generous amount of buttercream, just flip that upside down onto our parchment square. And this is the, I believe, last one. And then again, you want to flip that over and then add a little bit of pressure until you can see the buttercream reach the edge of your cupcake. Now what we're going to do is we're going to place all of these cupcakes in the fridge for about 5 to 10 minutes, just so they're nice and firm, or you can place them in the freezer for about 5 minutes. In the meantime, we're going to work on our chocolate. So over here I have some white chocolate that I'm going to be placing in the microwave. One of them I'm going to be coloring a nice pink shade, and the other one I'm going to be coloring white. But the coloring that you use is very important. So over here I have this Chef Master candy color. This will prevent your chocolate from splitting. However, if you don't have that, you can add a little bit of gel-based food coloring as well. I do add that later in the video as well, and you can see, and it doesn't split up, but you don't want to add in too much. The key to having a nice tempered chocolate is when you are placing this in the microwave, you just want to do it on 10-second intervals, mixing each time in between. Once you've melted your chocolate, in that much the buttercream is nice and firm, so I took out all of the cupcakes out of the fridge. And once you peel back the parchment paper, it should come off nice and easily, and you'll have a nice perfect flat top to work with. So now we're just going to repeat that and remove the parchment paper from all of the other cupcakes. So just nice and carefully peel back the parchment paper. If your buttercream hasn't had enough time to chill in the fridge or in the freezer, it won't be very easy to peel back the parchment paper. So just make sure that you do take your time and you know that your parchment paper will peel back from your buttercream. So once you peel back the parchment paper from all of your cupcakes, you have these nice perfect flat tops to work with. And in that much the chocolate has also melted, so you just want to make sure that you do place your chocolate in the microwave for 10 seconds, give it a nice mix, then place it back in the microwave for 10 seconds, and you want to keep doing that until the chocolate is nice and melted. But you don't want to heat it too much, otherwise it's not going to be nice and tempered. Now you just want to carefully take your cupcake and you want to flip that into the white chocolate. And then you just want to kind of tap your cupcake to take off any of that excess chocolate from the sides off of your cupcake. So I'm going to do 2 of my cupcakes with white chocolate. So again, you just want to carefully dip your cupcake inside of the chocolate. This also makes decorating a lot easier as well, especially if you want to get rid of any imperfections. Dipping your cupcakes in chocolate will make you get a nice flat, even, smooth top to work with as well. Also, I did forget to mention, I didn't end up adding any white gel food coloring to this chocolate. It was pretty nice and white anyway, so I just kept it the way it was. Now I placed the other bowl in the microwave the same way, and now to that I'm going to be adding in some of that red candy color food coloring. So you just want to add in a generous amount, and then you just want to give it a nice mix. So after adding in the drop of gel food coloring, I didn't feel like the color was as strong, so I added in a little bit more. I still felt like it was very light even after adding in 2 drops, so I've added in a generous amount, and I still found it to be a little bit more of like this pinkish color. So again, you just want to keep building on the color until you're happy with how it looks. At this point, I have been adding in the red color, but to kind of give it the color that I was going for, I ended up adding in some gel-based food coloring, so the one by Chef Master. So you can see that this is more like it's not the pink that I'm going for, so I did end up adding in some of that deep pink color by Chef Master. At this point, if you feel like your chocolate might split, you can always add in a little bit of oil into that as well. It will prevent it from kind of splitting. I put a little bit too much, so I placed the rest on the side, and I wanted to add in more depending on how much I needed. So I did end up using all of the gel food coloring, and at this point I'm happy with the color that I've achieved. So I'm just going to go ahead and dip the other 2 cupcakes in this pink chocolate. So we're going to follow that same method. You just want to kind of tap your bowl first to just get rid of any of those air bubbles as well, and then carefully taking your cupcake, we're just going to dip that inside of the melted chocolate. You want to push all the way to the edge, making sure that the entire buttercream is covered in the chocolate. And then again, tap your cupcake on the side of your bowl just to get rid of any of that excess chocolate. and you're going to end up with this very nice, beautiful, flat covered chocolate top. And again, we're going to repeat that on our second cupcake. And once it's nice and coated all the way on your buttercream, you're just going to give a nice tap again, getting rid of any of that excess chocolate. And you have a very nice, beautiful flat top to work with. So it creates a very nice final coat, and it tastes really good as well. Now for the last two, I decided to go with a marbled effect. So the first two I did were white, the second two I did were pink, and the last one I'm doing is a marble. So you're going to take a little bit of your pink chocolate and you're going to place that inside of your white chocolate. So once you've added a generous amount of your pink, you're just going to take a toothpick and kind of go back and forth, kind of creating this wiggling motion, and that's going to give you a nice marbled effect. So I feel like it didn't have too much of the pink, so I went back and I added in a little bit more of that pink chocolate. Again, you're going to use the toothpick and create this back and forth motion. If you create the number 8, you're going to get more of that effect. So keep creating like the number 8, and you're going to get a beautiful marbled effect. And then you're going to take your cupcake and you're just going to carefully dip that inside of your chocolate again, just like I showed you previously. And once it's nice and fully dipped, you're just going to kind of twist and tap any excess, and you're going to end up with this very nice, beautiful marbled effect on your cupcake. We're going to do the same thing again on our last cupcake. I feel like it's lost its marble because we've dipped it in, so you just want to go back, add a little bit of your pink chocolate, again following that number 8 motion, and kind of just moving it back and forth until you have the nice kind of marbled effect showing in your chocolate. And then again, you just want to carefully dip your cupcake inside of that chocolate. And again, you're going to end up with this very beautiful marbled look to the top of your cupcake. Now you can see the top is nice and matte, and that basically means the chocolate has nice and firmed and tempered. So we're just going to place both of the excess chocolates in a piping bag, and we're just going to cut off the top of the piping tip just to get a nice little drizzle for the top of our cupcakes. So you just want to test the thickness inside a bowl. I didn't realize that my video stopped editing for recording for the other one, so I'm just going to show you one of them that was actually recorded. So you just want to create this back and forth motion on top of your cupcake, and you're going to end up with these very nice, beautiful chocolate drizzles on top of the cupcake. So I did that for 2 of my cupcakes, so one for the pink one and then one for the white one, but I unfortunately didn't know my video was not recording when I was showing the white one. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and start coloring the remaining of my buttercream with a little bit of this pink gel food coloring. I also left a little bit of buttercream to the side, which I'm going to be coloring green later on, so you just want to keep that in mind. So I divided the buttercream into 3 batches, one with the white, one with the pink, and then one with the green. So you can see that the color isn't too strong, so you want to add a generous amount of gel-based food coloring into the buttercream. Also, I forgot to mention the type of gel food coloring I was using, and I used the Deep Pink by Chef Master, the same color that I used to color my chocolate. So I also want to add a little bit of the red gel-based food coloring as well, just because those were the same 2 colors that I used for my chocolate. So I'm trying to go for that same color as the pink chocolate so I can match it to the color of my buttercream as well. So you just want to give it a nice mix. And again, I'm using that same motion of going back and forth. This is also going to get rid of any of those excess air bubbles and give us a nice silky smooth buttercream to work with and create our beautiful roses. So at this point, you can see I have nice silky smooth buttercream, and it's very close to the color of the chocolate. So now I'm just going to work on the white buttercream. So again, you can see that the white buttercream is a little too white, and I want it to be a little bit more yellow to match the color of the chocolate. So I'm going to add a little bit of this lemon yellow gel-based food coloring by Chef Master as well. So you just want to add a little bit, and then you just want to give it a nice mix. So at this point, you can see that I ended up adding a little bit too much, so I want to offset that by going back in and adding in some of that white gel-based food coloring. So it is always best to start off with a little bit and build your color. So you can see that I ended up going with a little bit too much of that yellow, so now I'm trying to offset it with some of that white gel based food coloring. So this is pretty much going to reverse the process of the yellow and kind of give us the color that we're going for. So you can see it is very close to the color of the chocolate. I think it could be a little bit more whiter and paler in color. So what I'm going to do is add a little bit more of that white gel based food coloring. And this is also going to get rid of any of that air bubble while we're mixing as well. So at this point you can see that the color of the buttercream is very close to the shade of the white chocolate. So at this point I'm happy with the colors for both of my buttercreams. So now I'm just going to go ahead and place both of my buttercreams in my piping bags. But before we do that, I'm just going to go over some of the additional materials we're going to need. So we're going to need a cake board, 2 piping tips, 2 couplers, as well as a flower nail. So the 2 piping tips we're using is, first of all, this Wilton tip number 102, which is a small petal tip. It's narrow on one side and it is larger on the other. This is what's going to help us create smaller roses. The other piping tip is a Wilton tip number 104, which is pretty much the same shape, narrow on one side, larger on the other, but this is going to help us create larger roses. We're also going to need some couplers. This is what's going to allow us to switch out our piping tips from our piping bag so we can have 2 different colored roses. And we're also going to need a flower nail. This is what's going to allow us to create our roses. So we're just going to take our coupler, the top piece, and we're going to push that to the bottom of our piping bag. Then you're going to take your scissors and score your piping bag, push the little tip back, snip off the top, and then push your coupler forward, and then adding your second piece, just attach that to the coupler. I like to twist and push in from the top and then kind of just fold your piping bag over your cup. And then we're just going to place our buttercream inside of our piping bag. Just scrape your bowl and add in all of your buttercream inside of your piping bag. And then you're just going to carefully unfold the sides of your piping bag and pull up. And then kind of push your buttercream all the way to the edge. And now you have your piping bag ready to decorate. So you can take that extra little coupler and kind of twist that off. And then you just want to add your piping tip on top. And then adding that second ring piece, you just want to twist that in place. And this piping bag is ready to use, and we can start creating our flowers. We're going to repeat that with our pink buttercream as well. So you're just going to follow that same step, put in all of your buttercream in your piping bag and push to the edge, and then taking that second ring piece, and you're just going to add in our piping tip on top, and then twist the second piece of your coupler on place. Now that both of our piping bags are filled with our buttercream and we have our piping tip on top, we're just going to go ahead and start creating the roses. Over here I have my cake board that I'm going to be placing the roses on, and I've also cut up some parchment squares. So I'm just going to, first of all, taking my Wilton tip number 104, and I'm going to take my flower nail. I'm just going to add a little bit of that buttercream on top of the flower nail and then add a parchment square on top. Now what we're going to do is we're going to create a nice center dome. So you kind of hold your piping bag nice and straight and kind of create this point to the top, then creating a swirl in the center. That's going to be the bud for our rose. Now for the petals, you want to start from the bottom, kind of create this curve motion upwards and then pull down, creating 3 petals to begin with. And then on the overlaps, we're going to create our second layer for our rose petals, starting from the bottom, creating this upward motion and then pull down. You're going to keep doing this until you're happy with the size of your rose. So now that I've created my first rose, I'm just going to go ahead and create a few more larger roses. And then I switched out my coupler with a smaller Wilton tip number 102 to create smaller white roses. Again, creating that little triangular dome, then kind of swirling, making sure you're swirling your flower nail as well, and then creating those small petals overlapping halfway on your previous petal. The more petals you create, the larger your rose is going to get. But you want to make sure that you follow that same motion of starting from the bottom, creating that upward kind of motion and then pull down. So at this point, I'm going to create a few more of those white roses, and then I'm going to start creating the pink roses. Again, I have added the Wilton tip number 104 on my piping bag, on my pink piping bag, and now we're just going to create that dome following that same swirl motion. And then again, starting from the bottom, pull up and then pull down, and we're going to create 3 of those rose petals. Then we're going to overlap halfway on our previous petals, and we're going to keep doing that until we're happy with the size of the rose. So sorry, I didn't realize that my video was cut off from the edge there. Next time we'll definitely try to make sure that doesn't happen. So again, I'm creating another large rose where I've created that center swirl, and then I've created those petals, and you just want to make sure that the previous petal overlaps on the next one, following that same motion of going down, pulling up, and then pulling down. And now I'm creating a few of those smaller roses. So I've switched out the piping tip to a Wilton tip number 102, created a small little dome and then a swirl in the center, and then again creating petals. So starting off with 3 petals in the center, and then again overlapping halfway on our previous petal, going from the bottom, pulling up, and then pulling down. And you're just going to create a few more of these small roses. At this point, I've created all the roses and I'm happy with all of the different sizes that I have. So I'm just going to place this in the fridge for about 10 to 15 minutes, or you can place them in the freezer for about 5 to 7 minutes until nice and firm. So at this point, the buttercream flowers have chilled in the freezer for about 5 to 7 minutes, and they are nice and firm to the touch, so none of that buttercream gets onto my fingers, so they are ready to use and apply on top of our cupcakes. I've also placed the Wilton tip number 2 round tips on top of my piping bags, just so that I can use that buttercream to apply my roses on top of my cupcakes as well. So we're going to start off with the pink striped cupcake. So on top of the pink ones, I'm going to add in the white rose, just because I feel like the contrast for the color is going to look really nice. So you can place it on top and kind of see where you like it. So I've placed it kind of in the corner, and I kind of want to see how it looks like in the center, and I do prefer it in the center more. So you can see, you can at this point still decide where you want to move it around, and then you're just going to take some of your buttercream and you're going to place that underneath your flower just so that it stays in place. So at this point, I'm going to work on the smooth surface pink one. On that one, I'm also adding the white rose, and this time I'm placing it in the corner. Again, you want to add a little bit of buttercream, making sure you're using the same buttercream as the flower color, just so that it doesn't show through. Once you're happy with how that looks, we're going to move on to the smooth white one, and on that one I'm going to add the pink rose. And I'm placing that in the corner, and I've also decided to add a smaller pink rose next to that as well. Once you're happy with the arrangement, you can go ahead and add the buttercream to the back of the rose, just to make sure that you place it where you're happy with. And then on the white striped one, I've decided to go with a triple rosette in the center, going with 1 medium-sized rose and then 2 kind of smaller roses. So once I'm happy with the arrangement, I'm just going to go ahead and add a little bit of that buttercream to the back of the rose, just to make sure that it's secured nice in place, and I'm happy with the placement as well. So you can see that once you've created the roses, it's very fun to kind of arrange the roses the way you like on each of your cupcake. It makes each of the cupcake very unique, and each one is designed in a way that's very different from one another. So you can see that one's in the center, one has a single rose, one is the double, one's the triple. You kind of just want to keep doing that. So now with the last the second last marbled rose, I've decided to add both of the different types of colors. So 1 large pink one and then a slightly smaller white one. And then for the last one, I've decided to just go with 1 large rose in the side. And now we're just going to go ahead and add the buttercream at the bottom of our roses, just so they are nice and secured to our cupcake. And finally, our last one, just securing that with a little bit of the pink buttercream. At this point, we've created the triple rose, double rose, and then we've created single. So you can see that each one of these cupcakes is very different, very unique. Now we're just going to add our final touch, which are the leaves. So what I've mentioned earlier is I took out some of that white buttercream, and to that I'm going to add in a drop of that green gel-based food coloring. Now you just want to give everything a nice mix. This process again is going to help us get rid of any of those air bubbles in our buttercream and help us achieve our green color. So at this point you can see I'm really happy with this pastel green shade. So again, I'm just going to add that into a piping bag fitted with a Wilton tip number 352, which is a small leaf tip. It's kind of in the shape of a beak, and that's what's going to help us create our leaves on our roses, next to our roses. So you can see you're going to hold it in the same form of the beak, and you're going to apply this back and forth kind of motion. That's what's going to help us create those lines for our leaves. So I'm just going to add the leaves in the gap as well. And I'm only going to add the leaves on 3 of the cupcakes. So one on the marbled, one on the pink one, and one on the white one. So now on the white large rose, I'm going to create 3 leaves. So creating that back and forth wiggle motion, and then on the opposite end, again, create this back and forth motion and then release upwards. So I'm happy with the arrangement of the leaves for that rose, and now I'm going to work on the last cupcake. So again, I'm just going to, in the gap, create this back and forth kind of wiggle motion and then move upward and release. Again, a smaller rose, and then in the gap, again, you're going to apply pressure, creating a larger rose, and then release and pull upwards. I was going to add another leaf, but then I kind of liked how it looked with just the 3 leaves. At this point, I'm going to add this final finish, which is this Roxy and Rich Rose Gold Luster Dust. So this is completely optional, but I did have this, and I feel like it was just going to add this nice final touch to my cupcakes. So you just want to add a nice spray on each of your cupcakes. If you don't have this, you don't have to go ahead and actually buy this. You can just leave them just the way they are. They also look beautiful like that. So this is my pink triple rose on the striped cupcake, my double rose on the marbled, the single rose on the stripe, and then the marble one with the pink. You can see how beautiful that golden luster dust shine is, and then the double roses on the white. I'm really happy with the way all of these cupcakes turned out. I hope you guys found this video tutorial helpful, and if you did, please subscribe to my channel and hit the bell notification so you get notified every time I upload a new video. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you guys in my next video.